Welcome to the first lecture on culture and conflict resolution. Let us start with two basic questions. What is culture and what is conflict? The term culture, which originally meant the cultivation of the soul or mind, acquires most of its later modern meanings in the writings of the 18th century German thinkers, who were on various levels developing Rousseau's criticism of modern liberalism and enlightenment. Two primary meanings of culture emerge from this period: culture as the folk spirit having a unique identity, and culture as cultivation of waywardness or free individuality. The first meaning is predominant in our current use of the term culture, although the second still plays a large role in what we think culture should achieve, namely the full expression of the unique or authentic self. Cultures are like underground rivers that run through our lives and relationships, giving us messages that shape our perceptions, attributions, judgments, and ideas of self and other. Though cultures are powerful, they are often unconscious, influencing conflict and attempts to resolve conflict in imperceptible ways. Conflict can be defined as perceived divergence of interests. Conflict is the belief that if one party gets what it wants, the other or others will not be able to do so. Zero-sum game. Conflicts can be deeply rooted in emotions, traumas, value belief systems, and culture, particularly protracted ones. When others do not meet our expectations, it is often a clue that our cultural expectations are different. We may mistake differences between others and us for evidence of bad faith or lack of common sense on the part of others, not realizing that common sense is also cultural. What is common to one group may seem strange, counterintuitive, or wrong to another. This is how conflicts emerge. Culture is constantly in flux. As conditions change, cultural groups adapt in dynamic and sometimes unpredictable ways. So we cannot have one general description of a particular group, but we need to take into consideration time, context, and individual differences. Culture is largely below the surface, influencing identities and meaning-making, or who we believe ourselves to be, and what we care about. It is not easy to access these symbolic levels because they are often not visible or obvious. Therefore, it is important to use many ways of learning about the cultural dimensions of those involved in a conflict, especially in direct ways, including stories, metaphors, and rituals. When an aspect of cultural identity is threatened or misunderstood, it may become relatively more important than other cultural identities, and this fixed, narrow identity may become the focus of stereotyping, negative projection, and conflict. Since culture is so closely related to our identities and the ways we make meaning, and what is important to us and how, it is always a factor in conflict. Intractable conflicts like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict or the India-Pakistan conflict over Kashmir are not just about territorial, boundary, and sovereignty issues. They are also about acknowledgement, representation, and legitimization of different identities and ways of living, being, and meaning-making. Cultures shared by dominant groups often seem to be natural, normal, the way things are done, while minority cultures that are different from our own, we often label exotic and strange. Some examples of cultural conflicts are conflicts between teenagers and parents, which are shaped by different generational culture, and conflicts between spouses or partners that are influenced by gender culture. Unless we develop comfort with culture as an integral part of conflict, we may find ourselves tangled in its net of complexity, limited by our own cultural lenses. Cultural fluency is a key tool for disentangling and managing multi-layered cultural conflicts. Cultural fluency means familiarity with cultures, their natures, how they work, and ways they intertwine with our relationships in times of conflict and in times of harmony. Cultural fluency means awareness of several dimensions of culture, including communication, ways of naming, framing, and taming conflict, approaches to meaning making, identities, and roles. Thank you. Next time, we'll talk more about cultural fluency, different ways of communicating, and different approaches to meaning making that can help us understand cultural diversity, prevent and manage conflicts. Thanks for listening.